At dawn in early December, radar screens across East Asia began filling with blips. Dozens at first, then more than 100, moving with deliberate purpose across contested seas. What followed was not an exercise in secrecy, but in scale, as China's Navy turned open water into a message sent from Taipei to Tokyo. In the first days of December 2025, the Western Pacific took on a different rhythm. Beneath low clouds and steady winter swells, more than 100 vessels from China's Navy and Coast Guard pushed outward from multiple ports. Their movement was measured, synchronized, and vast. By its peak, this deployment stood as the largest maritime concentration Beijing had assembled in years, exceeding even the notable maneuvers of 2024. The ships were not confined to a single theater. They spread across the southern Yellow Sea, pressed through the East China Sea, fanned out into the South China Sea, and extended deep into the Western Pacific. Some operated near Taiwan's surrounding waters. Others appeared close to the disputed Senkaku, known in China as the Diaoyu Islands. Trade routes that usually carry tankers and container ships now share space with gray hulls and Coast Guard cutters, their presence altering the visual and strategic landscape. By December 5th, the number of active vessels had eased slightly, falling to just over 90. Yet even this reduced figure remained extraordinary for peacetime operations. Intelligence officials noted that the fleet was organized into 4 distinct naval formations, each capable of operating independently while remaining connected through shared command and control. This structure revealed something deeper than numbers alone. It demonstrated an ability to coordinate multiple fleets across vast distances, sustaining pressure in several directions at once. Experts watching the movement saw more than routine drills. They saw a rehearsal of reach, a display meant to be noticed, not through sudden confrontation, but through sheer presence. And as the ships held their positions, the surrounding waters grew quieter, heavier, carrying the sense that this was not an ending, but the opening movement of something larger. The surge did not come without warning. Its tempo changed after November 14th, a date that quietly marked a shift from routine presence to pointed intent. In Beijing, diplomats summoned Japan's ambassador for an unusually direct protest. The reason was not a ship or a missile test, but words. Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi had stated publicly that an attack on Taiwan could compel Japan to respond militarily. In regional diplomacy, such language carries weight far beyond rhetoric. For China, the remark cut to the core of long-standing red lines. Taiwan remains, in Beijing's view, an internal matter. Any suggestion of external military involvement challenges that claim. The response was swift but measured. Instead of immediate confrontation, the answer arrived in steel and movement across open water. Ships began appearing in greater numbers. Formations expanded. Routes widened. At the same time, pressure was building from Taipei. Taiwan's leadership had announced plans to commit roughly $40 billion towards strengthening its defenses, focusing on asymmetric capabilities designed to resist blockades and delay invasion forces. To Chinese planners, this signaled preparation, not deterrence alone, a belief that the balance of readiness was shifting. Analysts watching the sequence saw deliberate timing, not accidental overlap, but orchestration. The deployment spoke simultaneously to several audiences. To Japan, it underscored the costs of intervention. To Taiwan, it reinforced the reality of proximity and scale. And to Washington, it tested assumptions about response thresholds. No missiles were fired, no lines were crossed. Yet the message traveled far, carried by hulls cutting through cold seas. A reminder that in geopolitics, timing can be as powerful as force itself. As the fleet settled into position, their purpose became clearer through behavior. Reports from regional security officials described Chinese vessels rehearsing mock attacks against foreign ships. These were controlled scenarios, carefully executed, but unmistakable in intent. The drills simulated moments of interception, pressure, and denial. Not conquest, but containment. Central to these maneuvers were access denial operations, tactics designed to block outside forces from entering a conflict zone. In practical terms, this meant practicing how to prevent U.S. or allied reinforcements from reaching Taiwan during a crisis. The sea became a classroom. Routes were tested, responses measured, distances calculated. Above the waterline, fighter aircraft joined the choreography. Jets rose from coastal bases and carriers, coordinating with ships below to simulate integrated maritime air operations. Radar systems lit up. Communications networks stretched across hundreds of miles. These were not isolated drills, but complex rehearsals of command and control over long distances, a key requirement for sustained operations beyond China's immediate shores. Taiwan security officials described the period as the most active season of drills they had observed. Activity was constant, though calibrated. Warships and aircraft remained highly visible, yet direct incursions into Taiwan's territorial waters stayed limited. It was pressure without ignition. Japan's self-defense forces watched closely. While official statements remained restrained, defense planners noted the significance. The exercises pointed to improving long-range operational capability and ability to assemble, sustain, and direct forces across multiple theaters at once. For observers, the meaning was clear. These drills were not about today's confrontation, but tomorrow's options. Quiet preparation unfolding in plain sight, beneath the steady hum of engines and the distant echo of jet noise over open sea. History gives context to movement. In December 2024, China had already demonstrated its ability to mass nearly 90 vessels around Taiwan, a deployment that raised alert levels across the region. But the current operation went further. More ships, wider waters, longer duration. What once appeared episodic now felt continuous, as if the pauses between exercises were growing shorter, the boundaries more blurred. Earlier drills carried names like Joint Sword and Straight Thunder, 2025. Their focus was explicit: blockade scenarios, encirclement tactics. Pressure is applied directly around Taiwan's perimeter. Those exercises were intense but contained, framed as responses to specific political moments. This time, the frame has widened. Ships are no longer clustered only near the strait. They are spread across the first island chain, from the Yellow Sea down through the South China Sea and out into the Western Pacific. Observers see a pattern emerging, a shift from demonstration to disposition, from rehearsals that begin and end to a sustained posture that simply remains. In this evolving playbook, control is not asserted through sudden shock, but through permanence. Presence becomes normalization, and normalization, over time, reshapes expectations. The sea itself becomes a ledger, recording how power learns to stay. For Taiwan, the change is felt not in a single moment, but in constant observation. 4 Chinese naval formations now operate in surrounding waters, their movements tracked in real time. Warships and aircraft remain highly active, though direct incursions into Taiwan's territorial seas are kept limited. The restraint is notable. Pressure is applied without crossing lines that would force immediate escalation. Inside Taipei, vigilance has become routine. Security officials describe an environment of continuous monitoring where radar feeds, satellite imagery, and intelligence reports form a living map of activity around the island. There is no panic in official statements, but there is no illusion either. The scale and persistence of the deployment have changed the baseline. President Lai Ching-te's response reflects that reality. Plans are underway to allocate roughly $40 billion over 5 years to strengthen Taiwan's defenses. The focus is not on matching ship for ship, but on resilience. Systems designed to withstand blockades. Cyber defenses are meant to protect infrastructure during sustained pressure. Asymmetric capabilities are intended to delay, disrupt, and complicate any attempt at coercion. Beyond military planning lies a deeper vulnerability. Taiwan sits at the center of the global semiconductor supply chain. Its factories power industries far beyond its shores. Any prolonged confrontation or blockade would ripple outward, disrupting economies worldwide. In that sense, the implications extend far beyond Taiwan itself. What happens in these waters does not stay there. It travels quietly through cables, chips, and markets, binding global stability to a narrow stretch of sea. For Japan, the Taiwan Strait is not a distant concern. It is a corridor through which energy supplies flow, trade moves, and national security is quietly sustained. Any disruption there would ripple directly into Japanese ports and industries. This is why Beijing's expanding maneuvers have been watched in Tokyo with particular intensity. Chinese vessels have not limited themselves to waters near Taiwan. Their presence near the Senkaku, known in China as the Diaoyu Islands, introduces another layer of risk. These are contested waters, already sensitive, already crowded. In such spaces, proximity alone can become provocation. A misread radar contact or an aggressive maneuver could spiral faster than diplomacy can respond. Within Japan's defense establishment, the question is no longer hypothetical. Force posture is under review. Scenarios are being re-examined. Coordination with the United States, Japan's key security partner, is increasingly central to planning. Officials speak cautiously in public, but preparations suggest an understanding that any conflict involving Taiwan would almost certainly draw Japan in, whether by design or necessity. Beijing's reaction to Tokyo's warnings has been sharp. Diplomatic protests followed. Accusations of interference were made. The exchange has underscored a deeper friction, one rooted in competing visions of regional order. Between these visions lies a narrow margin for error, measured not in words but in nautical miles. Beyond East Asia's immediate players, the deployment carries implications for the broader alliance network led by the United States. The access denial exercises observed during this surge strike at the heart of U.S. naval doctrine. They are designed to complicate reinforcement, to slow response, to force difficult choices under pressure. For planners in Washington and allied capitals, these drills are studied closely. Blockade scenarios present particular challenges. Sustaining command and control over long distances, coordinating fleets across vast ocean spaces, and protecting supply lines under threat are not abstract problems. They are logistical realities. Each exercise tests how quickly forces can assemble, how reliably communications hold, and how vulnerable critical nodes might be. Allies across the region are adjusting. The Philippines has openly described Chinese maneuvers in the South China Sea as dangerous and is seeking closer defense cooperation with partners. Other states, less vocal, are quietly reassessing their own readiness and alignments. The shared concern is not the inevitability of conflict, but the narrowing space for miscalculation. Analysts warn that the concentration of forces raises the risk of escalation without intent. In such environments, a single incident can outrun political control. No side may seek confrontation, yet all prepare for it. And in that paradox lies the greatest danger. When preparation itself becomes the trigger, stability rests on restraint, timing, and the fragile hope that steel will remain silent. As the fleets remain in motion, the risks extend beyond strategy and symbolism. These waters are not empty. They are among the busiest shipping corridors on Earth, carrying energy supplies, raw materials, and manufactured goods that sustain global markets. The concentration of military assets along these routes increases the chance of accidents, close encounters, or misjudgments. In narrow sea lanes, a small error can carry outsized consequences. The Taiwan Strait sits at the center of this vulnerability. It is not only a geopolitical flashpoint, but an economic artery. The island's semiconductor industry supplies critical components for electronics, automobiles, medical equipment, and defense systems worldwide. Any disruption, whether through blockade or prolonged tension, would ripple through supply chains with speed and force. Markets would feel it long before diplomats could respond. At the same time, the risks grow. Dense shipping traffic, overlapping territorial claims, and increasingly assertive patrols create an environment where miscalculation becomes more likely. An accidental collision, an aggressive maneuver, or a misinterpreted signal could escalate faster than political leaders can intervene. History offers many examples where wars began without a clear design. In response, regional powers are adjusting. Defense budgets rise, joint exercises expand. Strategic planning grows more complex and interconnected. Alliances deepen not out of ambition, but out of caution. Each state seeks reassurance through preparedness, even as preparedness itself adds pressure to the system. What emerges is a picture of fragility, not collapse, but strain. East Asian security now rests on vigilance, restraint, and constant communication. The sea remains open but tense, and the balance that holds it together appears increasingly delicate. China's massive naval deployment is a clear signal to Taiwan, Japan, and the United States, but the danger lies in what follows. As East Asia's maritime balance shifts, global trade and regional stability hang in the balance, reminding the world that peace in the Taiwan Strait remains uncertain.